ICE is having hundreds of thousands, if not millions of interactions with people around the country. Do I think it's reasonable to assume you're going to have individual interactions where something goes awry, where a detail is missed, where there's something unfortunate,
this man is dead.
Bad that happens?
This man is dead, and he didn't need to be dead.
Yes, as you saw right there, a man is dead, and for Scott Jennings, a detail was missed. Something went awry. Boy, I'm sure he got a nice new kitchen out of this, selling his soul on CNN every night. But we were unfortunately talking about a nearly blind refugee who was dropped off by Border Patrol at a coffee shop that wasn't open in the middle of an incredibly devastating and cold Buffalo winter, which is not something that you would do to a person that you considered to be a person. And that is another thing lost on Scott Jennings. That man died in just a couple of days after that interaction. And so we're gonna talk about exactly what happened, what details might have been missed. But Cenk, what are your 2 cents?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts of the story that are kind of hidden that I want to talk about. So even if you're in favor of ICE in any way, shape, or form, I want to ask you a question about this case and get a sense of your response, because it's not just what's on the surface here. But John, give us the facts and then we'll discuss it.
Yeah, why don't we jump into people understand what was happening. So let's go to a photo of the gentleman there, now tragically deceased. This is 56-year-old Nurul Amin Shah Alam. So he had come from Myanmar looking for opportunity with him and his family in December of 2024. He wanted obviously some sort of economic opportunity, something good for his family, and he unfortunately discovered that you cannot reasonably expect to last 2 years in America as a refugee and live. Unfortunately, he was completely blinded. One eye, had blurry vision, and the other eye out to a couple of feet, which is an important detail that you need to understand as we go into his legal troubles that happened before he died. So last year, he was arrested during an incident where police said that he trespassed in a woman's backyard and bit 2 responding officers after they fired tasers at him. Now, if you just hear that, sounds bad. Sounds like it fits into the sort of narrative that you hear about migrants quite a bit. But the actual story is significantly more complicated than that. So he had apparently been out for a walk in his neighborhood and had been using a curtain rod that he had purchased as a walking stick because, again, he's nearly fully blind. He also, by the way, doesn't speak English. So at some point he got lost and he ended up on the porch of a woman's home as she was letting her dog out. The woman called the police, and when he didn't follow police commands, probably because he didn't understand them, they tasered and beat him, then arrested him. Again, he is a 56-year-old nearly blind man, and tasering him was not enough for the police there. They beat him as well. Okay, so in body cam footage of the incident, he can be heard speaking in his native language, asking for God's help and trying to explain to the officers that he lives nearby and was going to the store. Despite all of that, he ended up being charged with assault, trespassing, and possession of a weapon. That's the curtain rod, was the weapon that he had. And so he eventually reached a plea deal that allowed him to be released on bail without ICE detention. He posted bond on February 19th and was set to be sentenced in March. Okay, so the sheriff's office, they informed Border Patrol that he's about to be released. They said that there's a standard practice in cases where an agency has issued an immigration detainer. The Border Patrol then took custody of him. They discovered that he wasn't deportable because he was a legal refugee. So what did they do? They offered him what they called a courtesy ride, which he chose to accept to a coffee shop determined to be a warm, safe location near his last known address. Okay, so he was willing to be dropped off at a warm, safe location rather than be released from the station, which obviously would have been trouble for him considering that he can't see. He showed no signs of distress, mobility issues, or disabilities requiring special assistance, according to the Border Patrol. Just let's be clear about that. So let's bring up a little bit of the security camera footage that has been found. So this is from the evening of February 19th. So you see a white van arrive after 8 p.m. This is more than an hour after the store closed for the night, which makes it neither a warm nor a safe location to drop a nearly blind man off at. They drop him off in orange booties, sometimes worn by prisoners. Around 6 minutes later, he walks away through a parking lot and then disappears from view. He doesn't go into the coffee shop because he can't, because it's closed, of course. His family said nobody from Border Patrol notified them about where he'd been dropped. So they spent days looking for him, and a missing person case was even opened. Then on Tuesday evening, his body was found about 5 miles away. So if you're giving him the courtesy ride, first of all, one would think maybe you could bring him home. But they decided not to do that. Okay, so he decides to go to the cafe. First of all, that makes it sound as if, and this is good ammunition for Scott Jennings, he chose to go to the cafe. How exactly was that presented to him? Was it, we'll take you home or to the cafe? We'll take you, or was it just, do you have any place? And he's like, well, I know that place. We don't know, we honestly don't know. And then when you get there and it's not open and you're just leaving him in the winter, why would you do that? And why would you not contact the family? Why do they never contact the family? It's like just a habit, a knee-jerk thing with them now. They'll detain someone and you just could spend weeks not even knowing that they've been transported across the country or maybe outside of the country. And so there's a lot of little details that might have been missed. Some things went awry. But from the point of view of people like Scott Jennings, I'm sure many others, it's not enough to actually do anything about. There shouldn't be any serious inquiry. There certainly shouldn't be any reforms. Just continue going on about business because this man's life, let's just be very clear, doesn't matter at all to people like Scott Jennings. He is not gonna lose a nanosecond of sleep over this. It literally doesn't matter. And I'm sure he found it quite inconvenient that he had to have some of his time on that CNN panel wasted by considering the fact that this man needlessly died.
So there's something about sanctuary cities that's also in this story. It's kind of hidden in the story. I want to come back to it because it makes me wonder if I should change my mind on something. Okay, so but first I want to go to the substance of the story. So I try to think about it from the other point of view all the time, almost in every story. So I think, all right, so some people don't like us even accepting refugees. Now, was this guy a refugee? This one's not arguable. So there's a lot of people who are applying for refugee status, and you're like, are they, right? I've heard some scams, it's totally real. Like, yeah, I'll tell you what. I heard recently, Turkish guys pretending to be Kurdish, seeking protection from the Turks, when they're actually the Turks. Okay, so it's not like that doesn't happen, it does. That's why we have hearings, so we can figure out if it's BS or not, right? But this brother survived the Rohingya massacre in Myanmar. So that was a very rare Buddhists massacring Muslims, okay? So, and I love that America takes in people like that. I thought we should have taken obviously a lot more people from the Holocaust when that happened. Remember the famous ship that pulls up in Florida and we send them back, and a couple of thousand people on that ship died in World War II in the Holocaust. So taking in guys like this, I think is amazing and wonderful, open-hearted of America. I know some disagree, even in that scenario, I don't want it, Okay, so all right, but he's going through the legal process and he's here legally. So you could argue to fix the law, change the law, whatever it is, but he's here legally. Okay, so then you say, well, I don't like that he bit the cops and he didn't listen to orders. Well, he's having trouble with the language and he can't see, and and the cops confused the curtain rods for a weapon. Okay, you can argue all that. I'm putting all that aside, right? But guys, the court looks at it and they say, this is a misdemeanor. This is not not a felony. Given the whole context of this situation, this brother was confused. He shouldn't have done X, Y, or Z, but definitely not a felony. So, okay, so still does not affect his refugee status because it's a misdemeanor. So then they're gonna let him go, right? But he's gonna come back for the trial so that it's not like it's over. He's evading justice in any way, shape, or form. Whatever justice is, he went to the wrong house, right? My opinion is let him go. He wasn't trying to do any harm. That's super obvious, right? But okay, you say let's have the trial, no problem. Okay, so then to me the real problem here is the gratuitous cruelty. Like they know he's blind, they know he's having trouble communicating, they know they could call his family, they know the shop is closed, and they're like, oh, this is funny. Let's leave him out in the cold, and since he's blind, he'll wander around for hours. I don't know if they thought maybe he'll freeze to death, or if they just thought it would be really funny if he was devastated but not dead. And so if you get to the point where you're celebrating that, number one, what happened, guys? Why would you celebrate that, right? Do you understand that guy's not your enemy? Like the people rigging the rules are your enemy. Right, so like you're not making enough money because a lot of immigrants came in. No, actually we now have net minus immigration, believe it or not, okay? People are leaving the country because we're losing hope and opportunity here. So the real reason you're low wages, high prices is because the rules that are being rigged by the donor class. Oh, we're gonna charge you so much more on drugs, you can't even negotiate it. Why? We bought all of Congress. Big Pharma is completely corrupted Congress. So those are actually the things that are affecting your life, not this poor guy who survived a massacre only to die here in Buffalo, right? And so when you sign up for the gratuitous cruelty, one, you tell on yourself, and it's not, so I would ask you to think about that. Number two, the majority of the country is not gratuitously cruel. So even if you wanted tougher immigration laws, you're gonna lose the country when you're like, ha ha, that blind guy, we made him wander around in the cold until he died. It's a terrible look. Most Americans hate it. And that's why you're beginning to see the views on immigration go in the other direction. So doing this to this poor guy doesn't help anybody under any circumstances. So can we just put aside the cruelty? Like, even if you believed, you gotta be the harshest you can be on this, on immigration. You could do all of that and still return the guy to his house while you're processing him to kick him out of the country or to prosecute him or whatever it is. You don't have to add in the cruelty. Yeah. That doesn't say anything about that guy or the system. It says something about you when you enjoy that cruelty, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, just to emphasize what you were saying, I think beyond the gratuitousness, I think there's also this is straight up dehumanization. Like, this is completely removing someone's humanity from them and treating them accordingly. Not unlike things that are happening all over the country and internationally. But if you consider things from this guy's perspective, like, this was all a misunderstanding. He went into that yard, it was a mistake. He is a blind individual, and then he goes through this horribly traumatic process after that, and then he's dumped out, and any decent human being would be like, okay, let's make sure he's okay for a second before driving away. But then when these Republicans who are always about picking yourself up by the bootstraps, when they start saying things like that, you can also remember there's folks like this guy who had no opportunity to ask for help and had just seen how asking for help got him into this situation. Yeah. So he had already learned over and over and over again that there was no way for him to do the right thing. So I do think that they are more responsible for this than they're letting on, and it is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, so last thing is, so like all of this is leading to people hating ICE and Border Patrol. So if you're a fan of ICE, again, counterproductive, right? But on sanctuary cities, I thought that there should be one exception to the way that they're structured now, which is if somebody's been arrested of a crime and they're not immigrant or undocumented immigrant, you tell the federal authorities. Sanctuary cities don't tell federal authorities normally, and I think they should. And there's some debate as to whether that's the deal that was struck in Minnesota. I like that deal, but this case makes me rethink it because they did tell the authorities, and then the authorities came in and abused this guy and led to his death, which then makes the local authorities go, well, now I don't know if I want to tell ICE or Border Patrol, because if you're gonna treat people like this, then I'm gonna hesitate in turning them over to you, because I feel like I'm turning them over to people who are going to try to hurt them, right? So deeply counterproductive if you want better cooperation between federal and state law enforcement and reasonable immigration laws. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.